Hi, everybody. My name is Travis, and this is the Daily Travesty. We have been doing a series of videos about getting new drafters in Magic into drafting, what it takes to stay open, what it takes to evaluate different cards, try to build the best deck you can, how to get the most out of your gems. And what I thought I would do for this video is actually do an entire draft with you on Quick Draft in Magic Arena. Now, in my last video, I talked about how I prefer Premier Draft. I think it teaches you to draft better. And in general, I think it's more worth your time and money or gems at that point. I'm actually going to do a quick draft today because I want to have as much time as I possibly can get to talk about what decisions I'm making during the draft. And when you quick draft, there's no time limit on picks because you're just picking cards against the computer bots. When you draft Premier Draft against real opponents, you are timed. They only give you like a minute to make your first pick, and then every card in the pack, it's a few seconds less till there's only like 10 seconds to pick your last card or something like that, because they want it to finish in a reasonable time. They don't want people sitting there for 20 minutes mulling over their picks. So I think Premier Draft is better. I think you should be Premier Drafting as soon as you possibly can. But for this video, I'm going to do quick draft, and I'm going to talk through every decision I make in detail. What that means is that this is not a great video for someone who is experienced with drafting, already comfortable with the main ideas of drafting. They've already done quite a few Strixhaven drafts. They know exactly what's going on, because I'm going to be talking a lot. I'm going to be talking about every decision. I'm going to be talking about very, very basic concepts like mana curve and staying open and evaluating different kinds of cards. So if that's something that doesn't interest you, please don't invest the time in this. You are probably better off just going off to draft on your own. But if you have never drafted in your life, or you have done a couple drafts, you have no idea what's going on, you haven't been super successful, you're getting frustrated with it, maybe this video is worth your time. I'm going to split it up into two sections. So I'm going to have a video where I draft the deck and build the deck. And then I'm going to have a second video where I actually play the games with that deck, and you'll get to see how it plays out. Just as a proviso or general statement at the beginning, Magic is a difficult game. You are going to win some of the time, you're going to lose at least half the games you play. So although this is a video about how to draft, how maybe you should be thinking about draft, how to do it better potentially, there's no guarantee our deck is going to do well. We could draft this deck and go 0-3. We could draft this deck and go 7-0. Yay us. In either case, it's more about the lesson and how to draft. The last thing I'm going to say before we get started is that this, again, is not intended for expert level drafters. There might be things I talk about and decisions I make that aren't 100% optimized or best case in all scenarios. The idea for this draft is to get people who are brand new to drafting into it, not to win a pro tour, if they even have those things, or whatever. So if this sounds like something that's interesting to you, buckle up. We are going to spend a good chunk of time talking about how to draft on Arena. Let's jump in. Again, I'm paying gold because I want to save my gems for Premier Draft. I prefer this view. I think when you watch a lot of streamers and YouTubers doing stuff, they tend to show their board, the things they've picked. When you're drafting, that is better. It's good to know or keep in mind the cards you have in your deck. Looking at things like how many expensive cards do I have? How many cheap cards do I have? That kind of stuff. I prefer this view because the cards are bigger. I get really lazy and I don't actually read the words. I just start associating the cards with their pictures. So I think this is also a better view to show you what's going on. I am going to be switching back and forth between the two different views. It is really important to keep track of how many 2 mana cards you have, how many 3 mana cards you have. We're going to switch back and forth. I apologize if that's annoying, but I think it is the best thing to do. And I do this all the time when I'm drafting on my own. All right. It's exciting. We just started drafting. First thing we're going to do is look at the rare Conspiracy Theorist. This card is fine. It's 2 mana for 2/2, which isn't like the best card in the world, but it has an ability. The ability is actually quite decent. You can discard cards to draw cards. Sometimes you get to play the card you discarded. At the end of the day, it is a 2-mana 2/2 though. You might attack with this and then they kill it right away. So I think this card is fine. It's not the most exciting card. It's kind of only has one purpose, and I'm not sure if we're going to take it here. Growth Spiral is fine. This card costs 2 different colors of mana. And if you watch the video I made about staying open, this is a card that doesn't keep us open. If you want to play this card, you will basically have to be in a blue-green deck. And one of the good things about drafting, or one of the things to learn, is that the longer you can wait until you pick a color pair to be in, generally the better off you're going to be. So although Growth Spiral is a fine card, it's a card you're going to put in any of your blue and green decks, it costing 2 different colors is going to be tough. Compare that to something like Conspiracy Theorist, where this can go in a red-white deck. It could go in a red-blue deck, although it's probably not that great in that deck. But it's more open. It keeps us open to more options, whereas something like Growth Spiral doesn't. So we're going to pass on both of those. Academic Dispute, this is actually a pretty good card in the red decks. Sometimes you can just make their creature block you and you kill their creature. Sometimes you have a 3/3 and they have a 2/2 and you're like, hey, your 2/2 has to block, and you just kill it for 1 mana. That's awesome. Sometimes they have a really good 3/3 and you have a 3/3, so you just guarantee that you get to kill their thing. And the fact that this has Learn is really great. The Learn and Lesson cards in Strixhaven are really good, and you want to be doing as much of that as you can in general. So Academic Dispute, actually a card we would be interested in taking. I don't think you want to take this first a lot of the time. It's something that I'm excited to have once I'm already kind of in red, or maybe even like the 3rd through 5th pick in the first pack. I don't think I want to first pick this card, but between this and Conspiracy Theorist, I think this is probably a safer pick to take. It goes really well in red-white and red-blue. Prismari Apprentice, this card is really good. It has the same problems as Growth Spiral. It's red and blue, so not a card I'm going to take first, but I would like to have these in my deck if I'm red and blue. This card is great. 2 mana 2/2. It's a low costed card that does a lot. If you watched the last episode or 2 videos ago, we talked about how to evaluate cards using the bread model. So bomb rares that win you the game on the spot, removal spells, cards with evasion, cards with good abilities, and then just regular dudes after that. This card has evasion. When you play an instant or sorcery, it's unblockable. So this is a card that is really good to have in blue-red. You can just kill people when you have a bunch of creatures, they have a bunch of creatures, no one's doing anything, and you just can chip in for 2 damage, 2 damage, 2 damage. It's really, really nice to have. Not something we're taking here because it's 2 colors. Demigoth Woe Eater, this is an okay card. It's pretty expensive, actually, for the effect. I don't like that it makes you sacrifice something every turn. You do get some value when it dies, which is kind of nice. Again, it's 2 colors, and it's a bit more expensive. If we had to pick a card from this top row that was multiple colors, I wouldn't take this one. It's just more expensive, and there's other cards like this that you can pick up later. It's not a high priority. You can always find more expensive cards to play. It's really hard to get 2 mana 2/2 creatures, or just good 2 mana cards. When it's the end of the 3rd pack in our draft, we are going to hope to pick up stuff like these, and you're going to have so many expensive cards that you don't want to see these things late. Better to start with cheaper cards. That being said, something like Eager First Year is just so underpowered. The ability is fine, but it's not something you can really plan around that much. So this card is much worse than, say, Prismari Apprentice. Guiding Voice is a card that's really good for learning, kind of the same as Academic Dispute. I think Academic Dispute is better. We do want these cards if we end up in white, but it's not a high priority. We would rather start with creatures. In general, you want to start with cards that kill creatures, followed by creatures. These cards that do neither of those are a lower priority. Curate, really good blue card. Again, this just draws you cards. I really, really like this card. I think it's great in any blue deck. I want these. It costs 2 mana. Again, 2 mana cards are really hard to come by, but it's not a creature. It's not something that affects the board or the game right away. Unlike Frost Trickster, We already talked about this in one of the previous videos. It has flying, evasion. It's really hard to block a lot of the time. It has a really good ability when it comes into play because it can tap a creature that they want to block with. It can tap a creature that they're attacking you with and killing you with. It can buy you a little bit of time. And then once it's in play, it attacks them for 2 every turn, flying. And it's 1 color. This goes great in blue-red. It goes great in blue-green. This is a card that I'm very, very excited to get first because it leaves us very open. We compete in a lot of different decks with this card. Hunt for Specimens, also a very good card. 2 mana, make a 1/1, learn. Pretty good. Definitely not as good as Frost Trickster. It doesn't do as much stuff, but if I'm in a black deck, I'm happy to take Hunt for Specimens, especially in black-green, because they can make really good use of the 1/1s. But I think this card is also fine in black-white. Fuming Effigy is okay. 4 mana for a 4/3 is just whatever. The ability on this card, although it's nice, a lot of the times it's hard to control. You don't get it all the time. So this is just kind of a dude. Even though it does have an ability, if you use that bread model, it's kind of just a dude. And 4 mana for a 4 power, 3 toughness is like okay, but there's so many cards like this and cards that are better than this that I'm never taking this card early. I just don't think it's a big priority. Yeah. Big play is fine. Again, it's not removal. It's not a creature. I think this card is okay to put in your deck. It's nice that the 1/1 counter stays behind, but we're never taking this card early. This is the kind of card that wheels, a card that comes all the way around that nobody took from the pack. It's one of the weaker cards. So even if you want this card in your deck, it's likely that you'll get a few later in the draft once the packs come back around. So we don't want this card. Field Trip is very good. This is a card, I don't know if I really want to take it first in a pack, but when I'm playing green, I love having this. Learn is a really good mechanic. This also ramps you up a little bit. It gets you another forest directly into play. So you just have to get to 3 mana. This gets you to 4. 4 mana is really important in Strixhaven. 5 mana is really important, getting more lands. I think this card is good in both the black-green and green-blue decks. Probably better in blue-green. But it does come with a cost. You are taking your turn 3 and doing nothing. And if your opponent is playing a whole bunch of creatures, a bunch of Prismari Apprentices and stuff, they're going to be killing you while you're going on a field trip. So I do really like this card, but there's only so many of these kind of cards you could put in your deck too. Probably not something we're taking first. Owlin Shield Mage is good, but it costs 5 mana. It's 2 colors. Neither of those things gets us excited. We want to take very efficient, lower costed cards in general first. There are 5 mana and 6 mana cards you would take over absolutely anything, but this is not one of them. This card is fine. You only want 1 or 2 of these in your deck, maybe, and only if you're specifically black-white. Fractal Summoning, this is a really nice lesson. We are happy to pick these up. We're probably not going to take it first a lot of the time, but we would love to have this card in our blue-red deck, our blue-green deck, and our green-black deck. So this is a way to stay open, is by taking a card like this. Whereas something like Woe Eater demands that you have black-green, or Prismari Apprentice demands that you have blue-red. Fractal Summoning, you can have green or blue, or green and blue, and that actually does keep you open more. So based on everything here, I think the Frost Trickster is going to be our pick. It's a nice creature. 3 mana, 2/2 flying is already great. And the ability helps you when you're winning. It helps you when you're losing. You're never dissatisfied to have this card. And it's only 1 color. So that's the card I'm going to take here. Again, I'm going to take this card. I'm not going to worry about being in blue. I'm going to wait and see what's open. I would love to play Frost Trickster, but if I end up not playing blue, that's fine. I'm not going to worry too much about playing my first pick. All right, again, we look and see what's in the pack. The rare is missing, so the bot to our left took the rare. Inquisition of Kozilek is fine. I don't think this card is like that great. Yeah, there are some of these effects in the format that are good. The Humiliate card, the black-white one for 2 mana, is actually pretty good because it can get anything. I think Agonizing Remorse, the black one in a black, get something from their hand, lose a life is fine. The problem with this card is if you don't have it exactly at the beginning of the game, it loses value because the opponent is going to play their cheap stuff early. And so if you draw this on like turn 7 or 8 of the game, it might get nothing. I think it is powerful in your starting hand, but we're not really interested in it. Wormhole Serpent is an okay card, but it costs too much. It costs 5. I don't want too many expensive spells in my deck. I think the ability on Grinning Ignis is fine, but I already want to be in a deck that plays really expensive cards. And even then, I haven't found this card to be a super high priority. Lorehold Apprentice is basically just a 2/2 for 2 mana. It's really hard to play because it's 1 red, 1 white, so we're not interested in this card. Barag Befuddler is fine, and in some formats, some sets of Magic, these cards are really good. I think in Strixhaven it's not very good because people tend to play very powerful cards. These kind of cards are better when each player is smashing into each other with like 1/1s and 2/2s and 3/3s. And in this format, people are playing a lot of 4/4 creatures or 5/4 creatures, things that have 4 toughness. So this card isn't as good. Professor's Warning is fine, not a high priority. It is a 1 mana instant, which is really nice. Can save your creature, put a counter somewhere, but not something we're super interested in first. Pillar Drop Warden is fine. I don't think it's a huge signal. We do like this in our red decks, but not a big priority. Sudden Breakthrough is not a card I would play. It just doesn't do enough. I would rather have more high impact cards in my deck. Groff is fine. 5 mana, 5/4, not super exciting. There are cards that are way better than this, like the Professor of Zoomancy, 4 mana, make a 4/3 and a 1/1 is kind of like paying 4 mana for the same thing as this. Much better. Mage Duel is a really good card. If you are in a blue-green deck or any green deck, this is how you get rid of your opponent's creatures. I already talked about this in the last video, how this is a signal for green. It's hard to get signals after 1 pick because obviously the person to our left took, or person to our right took the rare. And there's going to be a lot of rares that are better than the commons. So it's not a huge signal, but this is a card I really want to play. I don't think either of these creatures is a signal. This isn't a signal. Always happy to take Introduction to Annihilation. Colorless Lesson, we're always going to be able to play it, but I think it's not something we want here. I think this Mage Duel is going to be really good. Again, we already took a blue card. We're not super worried about sticking to blue, but I mean, both of these cards are going to be really good in a blue-green deck. Maybe we'll end up in blue-green. Maybe we'll end up in blue-red. Maybe we'll end up in black-green. Maybe we'll be in something else entirely, but Mage Duel is the most powerful card here. We're going to take it. All right. I don't think Lumimancer is very good. This card's not very good. Revitalize doesn't do enough. Gain 3 life, draw a card, whatever. Combat tricks like this that pump your creature up can be okay in specific types of decks. They aren't a huge priority. You rarely ever see these cards in standard or modern or constructed formats. They're a little bit more likely to be played in limited, in draft, but not that much more likely. And you can get them late. I could take it now, but maybe no one else at the table wants this and I can get it from the same pack later on. So I'm not going to take this early. Combat Professor, in the last video, we talked about how this is a signal to white. This card is very, very good in any white deck. Always happy to have 1 or 2 of these. Curate is, again, decent in blue, but I don't want to take this card too early. This is a card I would take in sort of like the 6th to 7th pick range or anywhere after that and be happy. Lash of Malice, really, really nice black card. Kills small stuff. Falls off a little bit later in the game when they have large creatures. But hey, sometimes you just have random Frost Tricksters on the field that you want to kill. Kind of mediocre green cards. Thrilling Discovery is not great. It just draws you some cards. Fractal Summoning, really, really nice. Like I said, any green deck, any blue deck, or a green-blue deck, which is kind of what we started with. Maybe this is a card we want to pick up here. I think the cards that we're most interested in are the Combat Professor, the Lash of Malice, or the Fractal Summoning. The lands are also like a good consideration, but you can pick them up. There's a lot of these lands in these sets. I don't need to take one right now, and I don't know what colors I'm in. The problem with the white card is it doesn't go with either of our first two picks. There is no blue-white or green-white deck for the most part. That doesn't mean we couldn't take it here. Again, it's about signals. But if I'm trying to read signals, I also want to send signals. And if I pass this white card to the next player, they might think white is open and they start taking white. But if I pass something like fractal summoning to them, they might think green and blue is open and they'll start taking green and blue. And it's this huge balancing mechanic. So I think either one of these three cards is fine. Professor, Lash of Malice, Fractal Summoning. But because I already started with a blue and a green card, I'm just going to take Fractal Summoning, see what happens. It goes in any blue deck or any green deck. And even if I don't play one of my first two picks, I'm going to be happy to have this card. All right, again, Luma Master I don't care about. This lesson is fine, but nothing special. Strategic Planning is fine, nothing special. Befuddler is whatever. So this is the first pack where we don't have a clear card we want. We remembered seeing a white card last pack, Combat Professor, and the black card, Lash of Malice. And that makes us think that maybe black or white might be open as well. And we see that there is a decent black-white card here with Silver Quill Pledge Mage. There's also a Spectre of the Fens, which is an okay card. There are some white and black cards in this pack. The blue and red is kind of junky. There isn't really any green cards we're interested here. This is a situation where we're actually not going to take a card that's the colors we started with. We have to pick something that is going to be the most powerful. There isn't a very clear pick here. We could just take one of the lands as well. I mean, we're certainly happy to play either of these lands. We're not really in blue-red, but this might let us splash a red card later. We're not really in green-black, but we have the Mage Duel. Maybe this is a good card for us to take. This is a tough pick. I think that there are some decent black-white cards we saw in the last pack. We're seeing a Spirit Summoning and a Silver Quill Pledge Mage here. So maybe black is a color I would play. It's kind of tough to say. I think I might just take the Witherbloom Campus. If I end up in black-green, this card's going to be great. If I end up in not black-green, I could still play this in a green deck and be happy with it. I think, again, I'm just going to note that there are some black-white cards here, but I'm not going to jump on them yet. We're going to keep track of that, though. Okay. Well, Silver Quill Apprentice is a very good black-white card. 2 mana 2/2 can make any creature get +1/+0. This is way better than the 2 mana white card that does something similar, because you can put it onto any creature. I think Go Blank has actually been okay. I don't think it's a high priority, but people have played this against me and it's really annoying. Scurrid Colony is a really fine 2 mana 2/2 to get in green, and we thought we might be in green black, so I don't think it would be awful to take Scurrid Colony here. There's also an Infuse with Vitality, which is a little minor signal for black green. And again, the black-white card here. So we are seeing some black. We're seeing a little bit of white. There's also a Defend the Campus, which is a removal spell. Kind of have a tough pick here. Again, I'm trying to take relatively cheaper cards early. So even though Karok Wrangler can be okay, 5 mana 3/3, not great. If you can use the ability a bunch, it's fine, but not a huge priority. If black and white is what's open, I don't want to get too far behind on picks. But this Scurrid Colony is good. It does go in black-green. It does go in green-blue. It's really hard here. Defend the Campus is okay, but I don't think this is a high priority in white. I don't think this is much of a signal, even though you're happy to play this in any white deck. Again, I don't think it's high priority. I'm just going to go with the Scourge Colony. Again, I'm going to try and stay open. I could be black-green. I could be green-blue. There are a couple blue cards here as well. So I'm just going to take the Colony and see what happens. But I don't think it's a bad pick to take Silver Quill Apprentice here based on what we saw. Okay, so not much in this pack. Not much that's a signal. Witherbloom Pledge Mage is fine. 5 mana 5/5 is fine. We're already kind of thinking we might be in black-green or blue-green. So this card is playable in both of those decks. I think Introduction to Annihilation is a safe pick here as well. It's colorless. It's going to go into any deck we play. Golden Ratio has been okay. I don't think this card is a huge signal into blue-green. It does really well in some blue-green decks, but not in others. Vortex Runner is an okay card as well. I don't think it's a huge signal for blue, but it is good to note that it's still here. So I would say our picks are kind of between the Pledge Mage as a green card and maybe a black-green card. Introduction to Annihilation, which goes in any deck, and then Vortex Runner. Because we don't really know where we're going to end up, I think I'm just going to take the colorless lesson here. All right. Well, we don't see a ton of black cards. There is another Pledge Mage, which is fine. Arcane Subtraction is actually a pretty good card to have in blue. It lets you learn. It can help you win some combats. You can just play it on turn 2 if you have nothing else to do and learn, get environmental sciences from it or something. It does seem like I guess these are all technically white cards still. It's kind of a tough pick. I think Arcane Subtraction in general is going to be better than the Pledge Mage, but we've already kind of started to declare that we want to be in green more than blue necessarily. And we were not sure if black was open, so I might just take the Pledge Mage here. Again, my deck is getting a little bit expensive, even though I guess this is a lesson. So, another tough pick. I mean, drafting is hard. There is very rarely obvious decisions to make. I like Arcane Subtraction, but this is a card you can pick up late. I don't think it's a huge signal. Neither is Pledge Mage, but in general, I think taking this creature is going to be better than a card like this, even though I think this card is quite good. So I'll just take the creature here and see what we end up with. Okay, well, interesting. So that Demigoth Woe Eater came around. The card can be decent in black-green. This is the... Oh, actually, no, we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, we actually haven't seen this pack before. So this is the only pack we haven't seen yet. Everyone else has taken a card from this, and nobody took the Woe Eater, which is a signal that maybe black-green is open, which is kind of how we've been drafting. There is another Arcane Subtraction. I don't know if people are just not valuing this card super highly. There's also a Leyline Invocation. This card usually escapes me. For some reason, I just don't see the art that well. But 6 mana 6/6 or better is really good. We've been trying to take green cards. We've been trying to cut off green. I think this card in general is actually going to be better than the 7/6. I would rather take this card once I'm firmly in black-green and I have ways to make tokens already. I don't think it's a super high pick. And there's another one coming around. Remember, we saw one earlier in our first pack. I might be able to pick up a different one. I'm just going to take the green card. Again, stay open. I want to stay in green as long as I can, and then determine if black or blue is the better course here. We have not seen a ton of blue, though, so I feel like going into black-green is better. Okay, interesting. So the Demigoth Woe Eater did come around, but Field Trip is a very, very decent card in green. It can go get us lessons. It can get us Introduction to Annihilation. I'm happy to play this card in any green deck. Again, green-blue. We're going to stay a little bit open and take this over the Woe Eater. And just make a note that maybe black-green is more open than anything else. Let's take a look at our mana curve here. So here we find Professor's Warning. Again, I think this is a pretty decent instant. It can save your creatures from some stuff. I've found putting a 1/1 counter on things isn't great. Usually I'm giving something indestructible, but it's 1 mana for an instant. I think that is pretty good. Also, that Silverquill Pledge Mage came around. I don't think this card is great in black-green, but there's no reason it couldn't go into our deck. There's also Bayou Groff. I don't think this card is that great. I mean, our Pledge Mage, 5 mana 5/5, and our Leyline Invocation, 6 mana 6/6 are already better than this card. So I think here I will take a black card. And again, I think I'll just take the cheaper card. Black-green does tend to have a lot of creatures, and having ways to save our creatures is really nice. Well, there is a Cure Rate here. I do like Cure Rate. Amplimancer is okay. We would play it in this deck as a 2 mana 2/2 and be fine with it. But I think the hedge of taking Cure Rate here and maybe taking blue cards later is better. This is a very good 2 mana blue card to have. And we're not going to miss Amplimancer. I mean, we're going to be able to pick up these cards later in the draft if we really need them. So I'm going to take Cure Rate just in case blue is open in pack 2. Okay, and all these black cards came away. So we should probably be in black-green. Here we have our pick of Crushing Disappointment and Spectre of the Fens. If the game goes long, Spectre of the Fens has a good ability and it has evasion. And we want more creatures in this deck, so I think I'll take the Spectre here. I think this card is okay, but again, we can pick that up later. No one else is going to want those if no one else is playing black. Awesome. Infuse with Vitality came around. At this point, this is a clear signal that green-black is open. It wasn't a signal before, but the fact that everyone at the table has seen this card basically twice and didn't want it is a signal. I think Go Blank is fine, but I would rather have more creature-y, trick-based cards. And this card is really good. You can really wreck your opponent with this card. I've been wrecked a lot by it. So we're going to take this and probably move into black-green very firmly. Neither of these cards matter. I don't think either of them is particularly good. And Tangle Trap is not something we're playing. The fail case of your opponent having no flyers makes this card too much of a liability to play. All right, and we have a sweet black-green deck that we are trying to put together here. We're still open to the idea of being blue-green, but it did seem like black-green was a little bit more open. Lightning Helix is really good. It's not close to either of our colors, so at this point in time, we can stop looking at red, we can stop looking at white, and kind of hone in on green, black, or green, blue. So Lightning Helix is great, but we're not interested in it anymore. And whichever player at the table found the white-red lane and stayed open for that is going to get rewarded because we're going to pass the Lightning Helix to them. Same with this Warsinger. We're not interested in this. Zimone is really, really good in green-blue. Zimone is really, really good in green-blue. So it might be worth us speculating and taking this here if there isn't really anything else in the pack for us. Again, I don't think we're going to be in green-blue, but remember, we didn't see a ton of blue cards, which means the person we were passing to didn't see a ton of blue. So maybe we're going to get past a bunch of blue cards. Team Pennant is okay, I think. Eager First Year is not great. Here's another Frost Trickster. This card is really, really good if we ended up in blue. Leech Fanatic is a good 2-drop. I'm happy to play these. I don't need to take them super early, but if this comes around and we're in black-green, I'll be happy to take it later. Unwilling Ingredient is another card I'm happy to play. I don't need to take it super highly, but I do like having this card hidden for a couple points of damage and then draw a card later on. You can even sacrifice it to different things in the green-black deck. Mage Duel, super solid. And it's green. We know for a fact that we're going to play green. I'm not really sure if it's green black or green blue. I think this is probably the safest pick. And none of these cards are super interesting. I don't mind Introduction to Prophecy, but again, we're not super prioritizing it. So really the only cards we're considering are Mage Duel, Frost Trickster, and Zimone. And I think because we're pretty firmly in green already, we'll just take the Mage Duel. It's a card we're happy to play as many of as we can get. I don't think it's as powerful as Zimone or Frost Trickster necessarily, but we're pretty sure we're going to play this card, so I'm going to take it here. All right, what have we got going on here? Well, there isn't really much for us. Test of Talents has been really good in Strixhaven Draft. I do suggest playing this in your blue-red, blue-green decks. I'm always happy to play one of these, generally happy to have two of them as well, or one of these and one negate. Return Pass Caller is a really nice card, but we are neither red nor white. I don't think Reject is very good. Spectacle Mage is good, but we're not blue-red. There is an Inkling Summoning here, and if we end up in the black-green deck, we are super happy to play Inkling Summoning. We can even get this off a field trip if we want to. So I think we're going to take Inkling Summoning. There is some value to hedging and thinking maybe we'll be in blue, but I don't think Test of Talents is that much better in blue than Inkling Summoning is going to be in our black-green deck, and we are leaning a little bit more black-green because that's what we saw in the first pack. So I'm going to take the Inkling Summoning here. Still fully aware that blue might be open for us. All right. Well, there are a couple of good cards for us here. I think Mage Hunter is fine. Again, I don't prioritize this a lot. 4 mana 3/4 is okay. Generally better than a 4 mana 4/3 because it blocks a bit better. The ability is fine. I'm happy to play this in a black-green deck, but I'm not going to prioritize it. Again, 4 mana, it's a little bit expensive. I don't think Adventurous Impulse is particularly good. Emergent Sequence is really good. This generally comes into play as a 2 mana 2/2, which we like to have. And it can get us extra lands, so we can play our Witherbloom Pledge Mage or Leyline Invocation earlier, even Spectre of the Fence. This card is great in any green deck. Maybe a little bit better in green-blue than green-black, but I'm still always going to play this in a green deck. It's great. We're not Prismari. Another Arcane Subtraction. Pest Summoning is a card that we would be interested in. I think Inkling Summoning, the card we just took, is better than this, even in black-green, but totally happy to play this. Not a super high priority right now. So we're definitely taking Emergent Sequence. Again, we're going to stick to green, and we're still technically open. We could end up in green-blue, even though we're taking all these green cards. All right, here there's an Auric Lore Mage, 4 mana 3/3. Get instants and sorceries out of your library to your graveyard to put counters on it. I don't think this card is particularly good. You're basically just going to take the best cards out of your library, get rid of them, and the card gets slightly bigger. Agonizing Remorse is fine. We already talked about this. Not a super high priority, but I think this is playable. Humiliate is better. I think having the 1/1 counter on a creature is really good, but we're not in black-white. Reflective Golem goes in any deck, but it's better if you play a lot of combat tricks like the red-white deck wants to play, and we aren't going to be doing that. It also doesn't work particularly well with the Mage Duels. Even though Mage Duel targets our creature, it also targets the opponent's creature, so it doesn't work with that one. Prentice or Silverquill Pledge Mage is fine. Again, not super high priority in the black-green deck. We're not going to play Elemental Summoning, although I do really like this card. Doesn't go in our deck. Here's a couple blue-green cards. Eureka Moment is really good. And then Square Up isn't worth playing. So I think the pick here is between Eureka Moment and Agonizing Remorse. I'm not really worried about picking up Agonizing Remorse. Again, the card is fine. You could totally play it in your black deck, but I'm still not sure if I want to be green black or green blue. I think it's totally fine to take Agonizing Remorse, but I'm going to take your Eureka Moment just in case. I don't think I'm going to play Eureka Moment. I think we are going to be black and green, but you never know. Wow. So another Mage Duel, solid. We do need some creatures in this deck. We've taken a lot of sorceries, and it would be nice to have some bigger creatures for these Mage Duels. Quandrix Cultivator is excellent. This card is super, super good in blue-green. It's a nice sized body. It gets you a land right away. You can use the land right away. It comes into play untapped. Snow Day is really powerful as well. I always want to play this card in my blue decks. Teaching of the Archaics is a fine lesson. Not super exciting, but always happy to have it. So this is kind of what happens in draft is when you are going around the table one way, there'll be signals, and then when you switch directions, you'll get different signals. Like here, we're seeing a lot of blue. Sometimes that can be a little bit of a trap because in the third pack, you're going to switch directions back to what was in the first pack, and we might just get no blue cards ever. I think taking a Mage Duel here is a really safe pick, but we already have two of them. We don't have a ton of creatures, and this Quandrix Cultivator and this Snow Day are better than any of the other cards in our deck. Either one is going to make our deck way better if we play blue. We already have a couple of blue cards that are better than the black cards we have as well. So I think what I'm going to do is take Quandrix Cultivator. Either of these cards is powerful, but this costs less. It's a creature to play. It's a nice follow-up to Eureka Moment. Again, I'm not sure if I'm going to play this, but it's better than, I think, taking a third Mage Duel. The speculation on blue here, I think, is better than taking a Mage Duel. And then we get nothing. And I mean, that happens. I mean, sometimes you're not going to get hits every pack. Serpentine Curve is fine in a blue deck. It's better if you play a lot of instants and sorceries early. Another Professor's Warning would be fine, but again, we need more creatures in this deck. We do want about 17 ways to make creatures, and right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we definitely want creatures. Moldering Karok is an okay card. I think it's a bit expensive for what it does, but I mean, if you play this and they don't have anything that can kill it, sometimes you can win the game with it. It's a nice way to gain life. Duress is pretty good in this format. It's not always a great card, but it's a pretty safe bet that your opponent is going to have instants or sorceries in their hand. You can snag some of the powerful cards out of the blue-red decks. It's kind of a tough pick here. I'm not going to miss Duress that much. I think we just want to take creatures for our deck, and I don't know if blue is going to be open in pack 3, so I'll just take this Karok. It's a bit expensive, but we do need creatures to make our Mage Duels better. And here we could take a Silverquill Campus in case we find a really good white card we want to play. Go blank is fine. I'd rather have creatures though. I think Cram Session is actually decent if you have good lessons to go get. I mean, turn 2 Cram Session, turn 3 Inkling Summoning is pretty decent. The black-green deck does want to gain life. I don't know if Cram Session is a huge priority. You can seem to get those a little bit later. But I also don't think I want to take this land. I'm not really worried about Go Blank. So I think I might just take the Cram Session. Again, it's a green card. It goes into our green deck really well. Can draw us one of our lessons. Okay, and at this point, I think we probably will just try and focus on the green-black. So I'll take a 2-mana card here. Not super impressive, but I do need creatures for my deck. And both black cards came back that we had talked about earlier. Happy to see that. That's a signal again that black is open. I'm not sure which one of these is better. I do like Leech Fanatic. Gaining life in black-green is really nice. Unwilling Ingredient is also good. Drawing the card is nice. We don't have anything that cares about sacrificing yet. So maybe I just take the 2 mana card. This also wields a Mage Duel a little bit better. So we'll take Leech Fanatic here. 2 mana 2/2 in general is better than 1 mana 1/1. And yeah, I don't think we're playing blue. Even though this Tested Talents came all the way around, I don't think people know this card is as good as it looks. And we're kind of moving into black now. I don't know if I'm going to miss this Crushing Disappointment though. So still speculating, but I don't think we're going to be playing blue. Although there are some nice blue cards here as well. If this was a 2 mana black card or a 3 mana black card, I would take it. But another 4 mana card isn't something I'm super excited about. So I might just take Arcane Subtraction and see. All right, and the Agonizing Remorse came around. So I do think we're in black-green. Team Penance, good if you have a lot of creatures, a lot of tokens. I don't know if we'll play it in our deck, but it's colorless, and it does help you win a lot of combats. Another Professor's Warning. Oh, and the Silver Quill Campus. Nice. So pretty sure we're in black-green, and we need to pick up more creatures. Oh, Magma Opus. This card is super good in blue-red. I would definitely take that card if I was in blue-red. Here's a Woe Eater. Here's another 2 mana 2/2. Scurrid Colony. In general, I think Scurrid Colony is better than Leech Fanatic because later in the game it's a 4/4 and it has reach, it can block flyers. Maybe we take this Demigoth Woe Eater now and try and pick up some ways to make 1/1 tokens. It's likely we get Leech Fanatic or Scurrid Colony back when this pack comes back around. So even though I would like either of those cards, I don't think I need to take it here. Introduction to Prophecy is fine, but I think we will take this black-green card and pretty much move our way into black-green entirely. Yeah. All right. Bye, Quandrix Cultivator. Goodbye, Eureka Moment. Goodbye, Frost Trickster. I mean, we had some sweet blue cards, but I feel like we're not going to get very many blue cards this pack. Even though there's a Burian Books here, which is very good, in general, you don't want to take signals in the first couple picks because whoever had this pack probably took something way better than that. So Master Symmetrist is great. This is exactly the card I want to see. 4 mana 4/4 with reach. Great body for our deck. Rise of Exodus would also be really good. We do want ways to exile our opponent's creatures and learn. It's a little bit expensive. I would totally be happy taking that card here. I think Tend the Pests can be really good. It's really good with the Demigoth Woe Eater. You just make a whole bunch of pests. I don't think it's a higher priority than a good body or solid removal spell. There's also an Eliminate here, which would be really nice for our deck. Interesting choice. We only have 7 creatures at this point in time, though. 8 creatures if you count Leyline Invocation. So I think I just need to take a creature first before I guess 9 with Emergent Sequence. Kind of an interesting choice, actually, if we take a removal spell or a really good 4 mana creature. It's kind of a tough pick. I don't think you are wrong to take either of these cards here. I feel like our deck is trying to play a bunch of creatures and attack a lot. Use mage duels to clear the way. Attack with big creatures. And we probably want as many big creatures as we can get. This also has trample. This is just so efficient. Tough pick. Well, when you're picking between two cards, you're not sure what to take the cheaper one. So we're going to take the Eliminate here. Although it does hurt to pass a Master Symmetrist. Okay. How many learn cards do we have? 1, 2. We have 2 ways to learn and 3 things to learn with it. I'm trying to debate between taking Field Trip or Mage Hunter's Onslaught. I think we just have to take Mage Hunter's Onslaught here, even though we just took a removal spell. A way to kill any of your opponent's creatures whenever you want is really, really nice. The first Field Trip wield came all the way around with no one taking it, so this one might come back, which would be nice for us, but our deck doesn't really need to ramp that much. It's not like a blue-green deck that needs to ramp, so we'll just take the removal spell. Into a lesson, so either Pest Summoning or Necrotic Fumes. Our deck is most likely to want probably Pest Summoning, just some ways to gum up the board, maybe something to sacrifice to Woe Eater. Although we already have 2 lessons that are creatures, 1 lesson that's a removal spell. Maybe we're okay with just another removal spell in black here. I don't think this Spine Karok is particularly good, even though we could do with some 3 mana creatures. I don't think this is a card I really want to take. Maybe we take Pest Summoning. We might even play this card in our deck. I think it's totally fine to put this card in your deck. And we are rewarded because there are 2 removal spells here. So I'm glad we didn't take the Necrotic Fumes. I'm going to take Baleful Mastery. This just exiles anything for 4 mana. That's really, really nice. I really like Umbral Juke. A lot of the time I find myself making the 2/1, but just having the option to get your opponent to sacrifice something is really nice. But we'll take Baleful Mastery here. And we can see now that we settled into our colors black-green and read the signals, we're actually getting set up with cards. We'll take Umbral Juke here. If we had tried to force our way into blue-green, we would have nothing right now. We'd be in a lot of trouble. So I'm glad that we made the adult decision to go into green-black. All right, really happy to see 2 good cards for us here. Hunt for Specimens, 2 mana, learn, really, really nice. Honor Troll, also decent. I think this card's okay. I don't think it's better than Hunt for Specimens, but we would totally be happy putting this in our deck. We need a 3 mana creature. We're trying to keep a nice mana curve where we have a lot of 2 and 3 drops, less 4s, less 1s. You want most of your cards to cost 2 or 3 mana. It just maximizes the chances of you playing multiple spells in a later turn. Like turn 5, you could play a 2 mana, 3 mana card. If you have too many 5 mana cards and 6 mana cards, sometimes you just sit there with these cards in your hand while your opponent kills you, while you wait for 6 mana. So anyway, definitely taking Hunt for Specimens, which is going to give us 1, 2, 3 ways to learn, and we have 3 lessons right now. We might pick up a few more. Awesome. Blood Researcher, one of the best cards we could find for our black-green deck. I don't know if our deck gains a ton of life. Leech Fanatic is good for that. Cram Session, Infuse with Vitality. Maybe this Pest Summoning. Spectre, if we have a ton of mana. Karok. Yeah, I mean, this card is so good. It's great in black-green. It's going to be great in our deck. And again, because we showed restraint and stuck to our black-green, we're getting set up here. Really, really nice for us. Okay, I have a pick between these two. Both of them came back like we talked about. I didn't need to take one early because I could take one now. In general, again, I think Scurrid Colony is better than Leech Fanatic. But because we already took a Blood Researcher, it might be better to have more creatures that gain life. They just tend to combo well together. I don't think you're wrong taking either of these. How are we good against flyers? We have a removal spell, flyer. 2 removal spells. Yeah, I think our deck... Oh, and eliminate. I think we're better enough against flyers that we don't really care about the reach that much. And I would rather have the life gain for this deck. And now we have our option of Scurrid Colony or Tend the Pests. It is pretty sweet to make a bunch of pests. I think this card is better if you get the 2 mana Dina legendary creature, the 1 black, 1 green, 1/3. Every time you gain a life, your opponent loses a life. We don't really have any way to abuse Tend the Pests except to sack Pledge Mage or sacrifice Woe Eater. But we have enough 2 mana cards that I don't think we're really going to miss Scurrid Colony. So maybe we play Tend the Pest. I'm kind of curious how this card does, and maybe it makes Team Pennant a little bit better. Awesome, we got our field trip back. It does say we only have 9 creatures, but this is 10. This is kind of like an 11th creature. This is kind of like 12. 13 creatures, 14 creatures. We're a little creature light, but we also have a ton of 4 mana cards already. And we want to keep our mana curve in mind. So playing a 3 mana card that can go get us a creature is probably better than playing this Karok. So we'll take the field trip. Another Pledge Mage is probably okay for our deck. Again, I don't want to play the Spine Karok if I can help it. This is also nice with our Blood Researcher. We can gain some life off of it. Inkcaster is better in black-white when you're more aggressive. We don't have a ton of ways to do counter stuff. I guess there's Professor's Warning. Essence Infusion looks decent, but I don't think I want to play this card. More often than not, you'll play this and then they'll just kill whatever you put the counters on. You might gain a bit of life, but I would rather play just like a Leech Fanatic compared to this card. This card is really bad. 4 mana 3/3 is not great, and not interested in that. So I don't really want to play any of these cards. Nice, another 2/2. Oh, and the Honor Troll. Okay, wow. So black-green actually worked out really well for us. Now we have to get to deck building, and this is a spot where a lot of people struggle. I see a lot of comments online about people struggling with this. It's tough. It's sometimes hard to know what to cut, but if you follow some simple guidelines, sometimes it's easier to navigate. First thing I'm going to do is take out all the lands. I'm going to play exactly 17 lands in most of my decks. So I have to get this number that says 35 out of 40. I have to get that down to 23. I can take out all the lesson cards. I'm just going to put them to the side first because I want to see what I actually ended up with. But remember, these aren't going to count towards my deck size. Okay, so we have 4 lessons. They're all pretty good. I'm happy to play Inkling Summoning, Introduction to Annihilation, and Fractal Summoning as lessons. Pest Summoning, also a great lesson. Initially, we thought we might put this in our deck, but because we already have enough cards to play that are decent, we don't have to put this in our deck anymore. I have 4 lessons. How many ways do I have to learn? I like having the same amount of learn and lesson, or maybe a few more lessons, because I never want to play something like Field Trip and not have something to go get with it. That makes the card way worse. So I have 2 Field Trips, which can help me learn. I have a Cram Session, which I'm not sure if I'm going to play. I have a Hunt for Specimens, which I'm definitely playing. So I have 3 learn cards I'm excited to play. I don't think I want Cram Session. We only have the 1 life gain synergy card. And although this card is totally fine, you can definitely put it in your deck. We have enough other ways to learn with the Field Trips and the Hunt for Specimens that I don't need this card. I'm going to have access to all these cards as much as I want most of the time. So that's a card I can take out. And now I can remove the lessons from my deck. And we're down to 30. I need 7 more things gone. Now I just start, the next thing I do is I just start taking out cards I don't think fit the deck or are actively bad. So like this Tenured Inkcaster, we didn't really want to take it anyway. There was just nothing else. I don't think it fits this deck particularly well. And it costs 5 mana. I'm going to start at the top end and take out the expensive cards I don't want to play first. Again, you want a nice mana curve. You want more low casting costs than high. I think these Pledge Mages are fine. I could see taking one out. Woe Eater is going to be fine. Karok is kind of okay. I might take that out. Spectre is okay. These cards for the most part are okay. Mage Duel is going to be great. Blood Research is going to be great. Honor Troll is okay. That's a card I could see cutting as well. It does gain us a bit of extra life, but again, we don't do a ton of life gain. Field Trips are going to be good. They're going to get us our lessons. Always happy to have a couple Field Trips. Umbral Juke is going to be good regardless. Usually you're making a 2-1 flying off of this. Sometimes you get them to sacrifice the only creature they have left, which can be really powerful. Tend the Pest is a card we thought we might try out. We don't have a ton of ways to abuse it. Again, we would like to have that Dina card or the 4 mana 11/10. I mean, Woe Eater is certainly something we could sacrifice with Tend the Pests. And we do have a couple Pledge Mages. So maybe this is a card we do want, but I'm just going to set it to the side as something I might get rid of. I think Infuse with Vitality is really good in these decks. Makes combat difficult for your opponent. Getting an extra activation off of some of your cards is good. We didn't actually end up with any of the 4 mana 4/3 Professor of Zoomancies that make a 1/1. Those cards are really good. Great target for Infuse with Vitality. There must have been someone else in green. Actually, Spectre of the Fens isn't like particularly amazing either. So we'll take out the cards that we're not so sure about as things we might take out of the deck. I think Infuse is just always going to be decent in your hand. Good on blocks, good on attacks. Colony I like. Amplimancer is not the best card. I think there's this dream of activating it a couple times, but I find I rarely ever activate this. It's just too expensive. Colony is better. Even Leech Fanatic is generally better. We have a whole bunch of 2 mana cards, so this is a card I could see taking out. Merge Sequence is good. Leech Fanatics are good. I don't know if we need 3 of them. Hunt for Specimens is great. We have some really good lesson cards to go get. Eliminate is great. Agonizing Remorse. I just want to highlight really quick. So we had that decision in our draft between taking Eliminate and taking the 4 mana 4/4 Reach. And we weren't really sure what to do. Very happy we took the Eliminate. It just costs less, right? It kills the creature, it costs 2. And we ended up with a ton of 4 mana cards that we might not even play in this deck. Very, very happy to take the lower casting cost in that situation. I think it's going to work out much better for us. Professor's Warning is okay. We already have Infuse with Vitality, which does the same thing, but I think Infuse is a bit better. Putting a 1/1 counter on a creature isn't something we're super worried about. We're going to have a lot of like kind of dorky things that we're sacrificing and etc. This thing already gets counters. I could see maybe playing one of these cards, but I don't know if I'm going to play two. And then Team Pennant, I'm not sure if that's going to be great. It would be nice if we had a whole bunch of 1/1 tokens. So maybe that's a card that kind of goes in a package with 10 the Pest, so we decide if we play those together or not. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards that we potentially want to cut. And we only have to get rid of 6. So basically, at this point, I have to choose 3 of these cards to play. When I look at my mana curve, I have a lot of 2 mana spells, which is great. I love having 2 mana spells, a good amount of 3s. I'm a little bit weak on the top end. I'm starting to think about how is this deck going to win? And if all I'm doing is attacking them with Pledge Mages, that's a little bit weak. Leyline Invocation is fine as well. Blood Researcher is definitely something that can win us the game. I really want another way to win the game, especially if our opponent plays a whole bunch of creatures and we're having troubles attacking because they just have a bunch of 1/1s and they keep blocking our guy. So I think putting in Spectre of the Fens might actually be good. It can just attack for 2 in the air, which is a way we can win. And if we have a ton of mana, we're going to be able to activate it. Gaining 2 life and them losing 2 life a turn is a really good ability. And if we're able to do that turn after turn after turn, it helps us win. We're also ramping a little bit. We have the 2 field trips. We have the emergent sequence. And those are going to help us use this ability more often. So I think this is going to be a good card in our deck. We have Mage Hunter's Onslaught, Baleful Mastery, 2 Mage Duels, and an Eliminate for removal. Agonizing Remorse could be a card we want to play. Right now we're at 12, 13, 14-ish creatures. 15 if we include Umblejuke. That's probably okay. I don't want to cut too many creatures from this list, though. I'm going to say that Tend the Pest probably isn't the best card for our deck. Even if we make... Well, making 7 1/1s off of that is pretty sweet. Team Pennant can help you win games. I mean, you throw this on a Pledge Mage. That's a 6/6 Vigilance Trample. Throw it on a Leyline Invocation. Maybe Team Pennant is just going to be good in our deck. It's good with Blood Researcher. I feel like Moldering Karak is probably a bit too expensive. I don't want too many more expensive cards, so I'm going to cut that card. Maybe we play Team Pennant. Honor Troll is just a nice card that attacks and blocks. And then this is 5 cards to cut. We kind of did want to try the Tend the Pests. And I guess you can just chump attack with them to gain life for Blood Researcher. I don't think our deck in particular can abuse this card as good as other decks I've seen. But maybe we'll keep it in. Maybe we'll keep Tend the Pests in, see if we can get something going with Team Pennant and Tend the Pests, sacrificing Woe Eater or something. 10, 11, 12, 13-ish creatures. Maybe Honor Troll is our weakest card, which we'll take out. We're a little light on creatures. We do have some creature spells, and we're going to make a bunch of stuff off Tend the Pests. We also have Lessons, Hunt for Specimen, Field Trip, that can go grab us our Fractal Summoning, or can get us our Pest Summoning or Inkling Summoning. So there's also some creature value that way. I think I like the distribution here. A lot of 2-drops, decent amount of 3s, and some expensive stuff to go get in the end. Team Pennant on Leyline Invocation or a big Fractal Summoning, or even just on a Pledge Mage, is really good. So I think this is the deck I'm going to go with. It's tough, right? Like, there are really good cards that are left in our sideboard. And that's what you want. I mean, this is what you want. This is what you get paid off for by finding what's open, by going into black-green instead of green-blue. We found too many cards to play. That's a problem everybody wants to have. So I think we're going to run with this deck. We might switch some stuff out in between matches. All that's left to do is find mana. It looks like we're about even on black and green. So we're totally fine playing our Witherbloom Campus and then 8 of each color land, which gives us a total of 17 lands, which is the amount you probably want most of the time. About 17 lands, a nice curve of creatures, some removal, and some ways to win. That is a draft deck. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you'd like to see how this deck plays out in matches, go ahead and watch the next video. This has been the Daily Travesty.